Thank you, Pauline and Sue, for agreeing to talk to us about assessment for learning. Just want to ask a few questions just to find out how you've been implementing the assessment for learning program in your classroom. And the first question I'd like to ask you is, how do you think that the assessment for learning program as outlined in Angie's book has transformed your classrooms? What do you think, Sue?
I think it's enabled, it makes things easier, which is always great. It's enabled the children to understand their next step, and also to have greater understanding about why that next step is going to be valuable to them and have some ownership of their own learning.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's that ownership, being part of the learning process rather than being told by the teacher, this is what you're learning, this is what you're having to learn. The children are actually thinking about what they're learning and why they're learning, and they're actually contributing to the learning process, which leads to more motivation and engagement in their part, because there's more of a purpose. It's more to do with them as learners rather than just being, children who sit and are, given information. They're part of the learning process.
So it's transformed it quite considerably then when you look at it like that. That's true.
It's become less teacher driven and more child orientated
to the child.
Yes. And do you think it's an easy program to implement?
Yes, I do. I think the framework which is being provided in the book is actually extremely helpful, and I think once that you're using that as part of your planning, it's part of your thought process, then it makes it far easier.
And do you think it's engaging the students?
Yes,
definitely.
Because they are part of that process, as you said before.
Involved in it, aren't they?
You're actually asking them questions about what do they think.
Right, and so it's helping them to become more engaged in the learning process, you think?
Yes, and see the big picture through exemplars and seeing what that learning might look like.
So how do you know that it's helped the students with their learning?
Well, there's obvious, being in the classroom, the actual assessment for learning program. There's a before and after thing. I've noticed that what the children are achieving, they're achieving more than they ever did, because they're looking at their success and they're discussing their success with the teacher, and they're also discussing the gaps with the teacher, rather than it just being, oh, this is where you've gone wrong. They actually have an understanding of, where they've gone wrong and where they could go next, or what is the next process in the learning.
And it is easily measurable, that those steps are either achieved or they're not.
And there's a certain amount of the peer and self-assessment too, isn't there?
And that they can see that, maybe it's partially achieved, but there's just a little bit more work to do.
So if they're able to see the gaps that are there.
Yeah.
And they're able to fill those gaps in, because they're able to talk about it. Because in the past they weren't allowed, or it just wasn't what happened. They didn't talk about the learning.
It wasn't part of the culture, was it?
No.
It was something that they were told.
Yeah.
And so
we are learning this because...
Right.
Rather than, why would we be learning this?
Right.
How is that going to be useful in our writing or in our mathematics or science or whatever?
So is there anything in particular that you found helpful in the book that's helped with the strategies in your classroom?
Yes. Do you want to?
Yeah, I really like the plenary idea at the end, where the children are actually reflecting on what they have learned, or things that they enjoyed, or things that they didn't enjoy, things that they found